Okay, so all a unit circle means is that it's a circle with a radius of 1. So radius of 1 all the way around the circle is only 1 step. It's a unit, just 1 unit. Now, we're going to be measuring it starting at this first line here, right where your x-axis and your y-axis would meet. We're going to consider that to kind of be at the origin. And when I first start off, I'm starting off at 0 degrees. Just notice the degree marker there. If I go all the way around the circle, how many degrees have I gone? 360. How many degrees would be halfway? 180. How many degrees would be at the top? 90, yeah, because it's a fourth of the circle, so 90. And let's see how that would work. 0 plus 90 is 90, plus 90 is 180. If I add 90 again, 270. These all are kind of my multiples of 90s. So I'm going to highlight them with one color just to kind of make it stand out. And you can color them any way you want. I just picked one color for that, making it kind of stand out. Now, in between 0 and 90, do you notice that there's a mark right halfway in between?
Yes.
I'm going to color that another color here. And here's halfway in this quadrant. And here's halfway in this quadrant. And here's halfway in this quadrant. So what would be halfway between 0 degrees and 90 degrees? 45 degrees. Ooh, we've been talking about 45 degrees. That's really weird. Okay. So if I start at 0 and I add 45, 45 plus 45 is 90. 90 plus 45 is 135. If I took 135 plus 45, I get to 180. Beautiful. It's a miracle. Then if I add 45 again, 225. And then if you add 45, 270. And then if I add 45 again, 315. So notice we've already got a pattern. All of those are adding 45 degrees each time.
Adding whatever number it is. Yeah, okay, I got you.
Okay. Now, the other ones match another pattern. I'm going to color them another color.
I bet it's 30.
You're going to guess 30 degrees? Why would 30 degrees?
Because
30, 60, 90.
Oh, because 30, oh, this is a third of the way, so 30, 60, 90. Oh, yeah. Okay, so these are 30-degree markers. Very good guess, and it's weird that we did 45, 45, 90 triangles and 30, 60, 90. Has something to do with this circle. So, these are a third of the way. So 0, 30, 60, and then 90. I'm adding 30 degrees each time. 30, 60, 90. What would be the next one? 120. Add 30 again. Add 30 again, and I'm back to 180. Add 30 again. Add 30. If I add 30 again, I'm back to 270. And you always come back to your big markers. Add 30. Add 30. Add 30, and I'm back to 360. The other neat thing is, notice 45 is halfway between 30 and 60. Each of these is always going to be halfway in between the 30-degree markers, because this is only 15 and 15. We okay with the degrees? There's another way to measure on this unit circle. Remember, it has a radius of 1, right? Okay. If I've started here, and I've got a little gnat or something on the edge of my circle, how far has he traveled if he just started there and didn't go anywhere? 0. How far would the little gnat go if he went all the way around the circle? Okay, let's talk about distance, like circumference.
1.
How do you find the circumference?
Oh, circumference. 1/2. 2r. Wait, no. 2r.
Circumference is 2 pi r.
I was so close. I mean, technically I'm right.
Okay,
2r pi.
so if he goes all the way around a circle with a radius of 1, what's the whole circumference of the circle? 2 pi. So if I go all the way around, I've traveled a full 2 pi.
Oh yeah, because pi is half. I like pi. You could have answered that one too.
What's half of the full circle? 1 pi.
I like pi.
I also love pi.
What would be halfway between 0 and pi? Half of pi. And the way we usually write that is as a fraction, pi divided by 2, because I'm splitting the pi in half. So I usually write this as pi over 2. So now let's think about this. I started at 0. I've got half of pi, 1. What would be the next one? It's 3 halves. So 3 pi over 2. I've gone 3 halves of the whole way. 2 pi is the full thing. So 1/2, 2 halves would be 1. 3 halves, 4 halves is 2. So we're stepping by halves each time. How much of the circle would be the 45? If this is half of the pi, this is going to be a quarter.
Pi over 4.
So we're going to call this pi over 4. So just like before, when I counted by 45 each time, 45 plus 45 plus 45, I'm going to count by pi over 4. So fourths. 1 pi over 4. 2 pi over 4 would be 1/2.
3 pi.
The next one is 3 pi over 4. 4 pi over 4 brings me back here because 4 over 4 would be 1. What would be here then?
5.
5. So you're just counting. 5 pi over 4. 6 pi over 4. 6 over 4 is 3 halves. And the next one's going to be 7 pi over 4.
And then 8 pi over 4 is 2 pi.
And 8 pi over 4, 8 over 4 would be 2 pi. Do you notice it's just counting by fractions? Now I've got to figure out this 30-degree one. Okay, so 180 was a full pi. 30 degrees to 180.
6.
Is it a sixth of it?
Yeah.
Yeah, if I took 180 and divided by 6, I'd get 30. So if 30 is 1/6 of 180, then this is going to be pi over 6. And it is. So now we're going to count by sixths. Ooh, say that real fast. 1/6, 2/6, 3/6. Be careful saying that. You can say weird things. 1/6.
1/3.
If I had 2/6, that reduces to 1/3. So this is actually going to be pi over 3. 3/6 would be 1/2.
And then that would be 2.
This would be, technically it's 4 pi over 6, but that reduces to pi over 3. 4 pi over 6, 2 pi over 3. So 4 pi over 6, the next one would be 5 pi over 6.
And then 6 pi over 6.
And then 6 pi over 6 is 1. 7 pi over 6. 8 pi over 6. 4/3. So 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, I better come off to the side. 10 pi over 6 is 5/3. So here was 9, 10, 11, and this would be 12 pi over 6. 12 divided by 6 is 2. So the first step of filling in this circle is these patterns. And I want to pinpoint some of the patterns. We already kind of caught some of them, I hope. That these blue lines I drew in are all fours. 4, 4, 4, 4. Now, for the pink lines I drew in, some of them are pi over 6s. This is going to be an important pattern. And some of them are pi over 3s. Everybody notice the pattern? Okay, so that it makes it perfectly symmetrical. Now, there's something missing at each of these spots. A point. Because if there's no point, then what's the point? So we need the coordinate. We need the x and the y. Now remember, I said the circle had a radius of 1. What would be the coordinates right here? So if this is the origin, and my radius is 1,
1, 0.
1, 0. So let's start with those 90-degree lines. This is 1, 0.
That one would also be
What would be the top one? 0, 1. What would be the side one? Negative 1, 0. And my bottom one, 0, negative 1.
I like it.
This unit circle is going to end up helping us a tremendous amount throughout this semester, and for those of you taking calculus, it'll make your life a lot easier. I had several that have not memorized the unit circle, and it's made their lives very hard. So, the next thing I need to do is figure out these points. Now, the beautiful thing with symmetry, if I figure out this point, this is kind of a mirror of this side. And this one's kind of mirrored. All I really need to know is this first quadrant, and I can find everything else.
Yay.
So, I'm going to start with this first triangle. If I draw in right here, this would give me my x, because I went over to the right this far and up this far, so this is going to be my x and my y. Are y'all with me on that? I'm going to zoom in on that triangle.
Oh, it's a 30.
So if I redraw that triangle, it is a 30, 60, 90. We already said this was 30 degrees up. So this triangle is 30, and this is 60. How long did I say that radius was from here to the edge? 1. How long's going to be this side over here? Half. Half. It's half of 1. So 1 divided by 2.
And then half of
1/2 root 3. Now, we actually write this as the square root of 3 over 2. Are you with me? Square root of 3 over 2, because it's 1/2 of square root of 3. So that's my horizontal distance. That's how far I'm going to the right. And how far I went up is the 1/2. I'm trying to make sure I show you where everything comes from. Some people just ask you to memorize this unit circle, and if you don't know where the numbers come from. But we know square root of 3s have to deal with 30-degree angles and 60-degree angles. That makes sense. What about, let's go ahead and go to the 45 one. That's going to be a 45. 45, 90. And it's going to have a hypotenuse of 1. Ooh. How do I find out a side if the hypotenuse had a whole number?
Times the square.
Is it times the square root of 2? Or is it divide? So to go backwards, I have to divide. And what's going to happen if I divide by the square root of 2?
It'll just be the square root of 2.
Yes, sir.
You have to get rid of the,
Square root of 2 over 2. And it's the same because a 45, 45, 90 is isosceles. So all of these 45-degree marks, it's isosceles. It's same size. 60-degree. Okay, so I'm going to draw it here. If I came down and made it a triangle, this is a 30, 60, 90, but it's the tall way. It's going that way. So here's my 60. Oh, it's just kind of flipped. So the one across from the 30 is the 1/2. And this is going to be the square root of 3 over 2. So my horizontal distance is 1/2. And I'm going up the square root of 3 over 2. Okay.
Oh, and then you can just kind of.
There's a pattern.
Memorize all this and do it all over again?
That's why I'm trying to show y'all patterns. If I look at the x values, 0, 1/2, square root of 2 over 2, square root of 3 over 2, and 1. Look at the patterns going the other way. 0, 1/2, they're the same exact numbers. The way to remember the numbers, and this is my way of remembering them, if you Google this, you'll see all kinds of ways. So we had, let's see, the numbers were 0, 1/2, square root of 2 over 2, square root of 3 over 2, and then a 1. Isn't this really the square root of 0 over 2? 0. Square root of 1 over 2. Square root of 1 is 1. Square root of 2 over 2. Square root of 3 over 2. Square root of 4 over 2 is just 1. The pattern is it's square root. Square root of 0, square root of 1, square root of 2, square root of 3, square root of 4. And they just alternate all the way around. So, when I go to this side, this point is at the same exact height, but what happened to the x value?
Negative.
It's negative. This point is at the same height, but the x value is going to be negative.
Is that how it is for the rest of them?
Yep. So this one is going to be a mirror image. It's just the x values are negative. The other thing I want you to notice is the ones that had a 6 in the bottom have the square root of 3 first and then the 1. The ones that have the 3 in the bottom are the reverse. So all the ones that have a 3 in the denominator are going to have the same numbers, just different signs. So what's going to be, so this is going to have the same pattern as this. I just need to know what's negative and what's positive in this third quadrant.
It'll just,
Both negative. They're all going to be negative down here. They all float down here. No, they're all negative down here. Nobody laughed. Somebody giggled. They're all negative down there, but they match the same numbers. If you memorize the first quadrant, everything else is just negatives and positives of it. Which ones are negative and which ones are positive for the last quadrant? X is positive, Y is negative. So this one has a 3 in the bottom, so it's going to kind of match the 3 here, the 4/3. So this is going to have a positive X and a negative Y. Positive X, negative Y. Positive X, negative Y. Now I've also seen some people do some other shortcuts, some things to remember it. So another way you can kind of remember which one has the square root of 3 and the 1 and the 2 and the 2. Can I slide this down for a second?
Mm-hmm.
If I hold my hand up here and pretend that's the first quadrant. Are you with me? Okay. This would be the 30-degree angle, 45, 60.
oh, that one's your third finger.
So if I pull this one down, that's my 30 degree. How many fingers come first? 3 and 1. 3 and 1. If I go to the middle one, 2, 2, 2, 2. If I go to this one, it's 1, 3. 1, 3.
Hand thing, because it's just my hand. I can use that anytime.
Yeah. So I've taught that in the past for my pre-cal and my calculus, and I'll see them all go on their test. Boom.
I don't like that.
And then write down what they got. So, because it's easy. Also, some people like to make a table, and we'll go over how to make the table at the top of your pages later. But on your test day, you will be having to do this from memory. So we're going to be doing a lot of practice activities for the next week.
No notes for the first time.
This is your homework, is to memorize this.